What's up, everybody? Isaac here, Civil Engineering Academy. I'm excited today about another podcast episode that we have for you. I bring on a Civil Engineering Academy alumni. He he passed his PE exam recently. I bring on Matt Fanghella, and he is actually a contributor to a lot of the content that we produce now here at Civil Engineering Academy. But he recently passed his PE exam, and we wanted to have him jump on and talk about his journey. He specializes in environmental and water resources. As he works in Virginia, he works in the government sector and works on a lot of floodplain management and environmental response projects. In fact, we detail some of the projects that he works on, including the first of its kind in the country, which I won't spill the beans on, but you'll find out in this episode that we talk about. He has a lot of tips in regards to helping you pass your PE exam. We talk a lot about Civil Engineering Academy and how it helped him, but he's also working on his MBA from Old Dominion University as well. So really well-rounded. Started his career, going to school in biology, was going to become a doctor, switched tracks to become a civil engineer, went back, got a degree in civil engineering, and now works heavily in the environmental world over there in Virginia. So we're just excited to share the breadth of knowledge that Matt has. We're excited that he's sharing that content with us as well. And I think you're really going to enjoy this episode with all that we talk about, including some amazing PE tips. They're going to help you ace your exam. So anyway, that was a long introduction, but I think it's a good one. But the episode's going to be coming up right after this. All right, Matt, thanks for jumping on to the Civil Engineering Academy podcast. Appreciate you jumping on today and doing this with me.
You're welcome, Isaac. Thanks for the opportunity to come on. Civil Engineering Academy has been a huge help in my journey to become a licensed professional engineer, and I'm really excited to sit down and talk with you and share some content with our listeners today. So thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we'll get your experience with all the stuff that we've made, but before we, I guess, jump into that, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your own background, like how you found yourself into this world of civil engineering? How did you get here?
Sure. So I was originally a biology pre-med student at James Madison University, go Dukes, up in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And like I said, I was studying biology. And in my junior year, I had a summer internship in water quality monitoring with the state environmental agency. And then also had the opportunity to return the following summer, senior year, to continue the internship. And in that time, too, a full-time position came up in air quality engineering, so still in that environmental realm. And my idea at the time was I was preparing to take the MCAT and studying for that for a year, and then was going to plan to pursue medical school admissions and go down that route. And in that time, I kind of saw what some of my friends were going through in the medical school realm and how long of a path that was, and realized that might not be the best path for me. And had a solid professional job with good benefits. And I realized that if I wanted to stay on this path, I would need a civil engineering degree and ultimately a professional engineer license to move up and move along in that career. So I headed back to school at night while working full time and pursued my civil engineering degree. In the meantime, got my FE, passed the FE exam, got the license, EIT designation, from the state. It's not a license, it's a designation at that level. Mm-hmm. And graduated with the civil engineering degree. In the same time, too, professionally, I moved from air quality engineering after 2 years into stormwater management and also pollution emergency response work, as well, still within the government realm at the state level. And then also jumped ship to a local public works department and worked there for about 2 to 3 years. And recently took the PE exam in September of 2022 and am officially a licensed professional engineer as of November of 2022. And I'm still currently working local government as a coastal engineer in the Hampton Roads region of Virginia.
Wow.
So kind of a meandering path, but got there, and it's been a fun journey and a lot of great people I've met along the way, and a lot of great people have helped me out. So incredibly grateful for the journey.
Awesome. Was that a hard decision to make, switching from the medical world to engineering? Or was it just
Absolutely.
kind of there in front of you and you were like, well, I'm going to do this because I like it, or I don't know. How was that decision
Sure.
made?
So part of it was difficult just because like going through school in the pre-med, you're always geared towards the pre-med and the med school, and you have that community and that peer and friend group throughout your classes and some of the extracurricular activities and student organizations and things. So to give that up, it did feel like you were giving up a whole ton of work.
Hmm.
But yet the engineering, like you said, was kind of right in front of me. A path that I could go to school while still, working full time. That was very beneficial just to me personally. So it was right in front of me. But to switch gears, I guess, and to quote give up on the medical path was a decision to be made for sure. Not to be made lightly.
Yeah, for sure. I imagine that's a difficult one to make. Well, we're glad you jumped ship and joined the civil engineering community. So
Thanks. Happy to
I
be
think
here.
you're doing a lot of good stuff. So tell
Thank you.
us again. You did tell us what you do for a living, but I think a lot of people don't quite know what a coastal engineer maybe does. Could you dive into what they do in general? Many civil engineers aren't on the coast, and many are, but a lot of people don't end up going that route. And I'm just curious if you could help kind of round out what a coastal engineer does um,
Sure.
in this community.
So like you said, it's very geographic or region specific. Here in the Hampton Roads region of Virginia, we are right on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay, so plenty of opportunity. As a coastal engineer, project manager, I work and manage flood mitigation projects, stormwater drainage projects, dredging projects, and just overall flood protection projects. I also oversee 7.5 miles of the city's beachfront. So working on nourishment projects, dredging, things like that. Also, a unique aspect here along the coast is hurricanes and other coastal events, nor'easters, just very rough storms, even. And in that role, I am involved with the emergency response and manning, the emergency operations center. We call it the EOC. During storm events, we conduct pre and post damage surveys of the beachfront with the third party engineering consultant contractor. They fly LIDAR and aerial and drone footage and take surveys. And then we work closely with the Army Corps of Engineers in submitting any damage that has the storm has impacted onto the beach. And sometimes there's some opportunity to receive federal funding to make necessary repairs and
Wow.
those type of impacts from the storm mitigation requirements. So definitely a variety of work. No
Have
opportunity to
you
be
had a
bored.
recent storm you've had to worry about? Has there been a recent one?
We did have a tidal storm back in late October of this year. However, it didn't have the impact that we thought. So everything was okay, but we were activated for a couple of days and on call and coordinating with other departments. And we did also fly the damage survey, and nothing too serious was noted, so that was good.
That's great. Well, it sounds unique, and it sounds like it's a fun branch in the civil engineering world. So, if people are on that coastline, I think it's a good area to get into. So, as we chatted earlier, there was a massive project you've been working on, the Norfolk Coastal Storm Risk Management Project. So I guess you've touched upon that maybe a little bit, but can you describe the scope of that project to us and what was involved with that one?
Sure. So the Norfolk Coastal Storm Risk Management Project, or CSRM, is a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer project. The project is a 65% federal and 35% non-federal local government shared project, and that really refers to the cost breakdown and some of the roles and responsibilities. It's a total of $2.3 billion, and it received $400 million from the infrastructure bill in early 2022. Um, Previously, from 2016 to 2019, Army Corps, in collaboration with the local government, did a feasibility study for the Norfolk CSRM, and a lot of that funding was generated from Superstorm Sandy. back in 2012. And the receipt of the funding here in January 2022 is really what launched the project from an idea on a shelf to we're actually doing this. The project itself and the scope includes constructing an 8.5-mile flood wall around the city, as well as 3 tidal surge barriers. With that, too, we'll be constructing several pump stations, at least 5, maybe a few more, because if we currently the stormwater system is gravity drained. So if we build a flood wall like that, you kind of build the swimming pool. Now you need to drain it. So the stormwater system is going to have to be pumped. So there'll be some very large pump stations involved with that. And also, while all this structural work is going on, we also have our non-structural program, which refers to elevating and basement filling homes, raising homes, elevating them across the city. So there's 800 privately owned structures identified across the city that are in need of elevation or basement fill, and also 4 critical infrastructure facilities, a couple fire stations, water treatment plant, things like that, that need some attention as well. So overall, it's supposed to be a 10-year project, and we are in the preliminary engineering and design phase currently, and we'll be entering a construction phase in 2023 and hope to be breaking ground by mid 2024
Wow.
officially.
So were these homes in a floodplain, or is it just because of the crazy storm event? I mean, the of a hurricane. Is it
Sure.
like why
Some
weren't
of
the homes raised earlier? I guess is my question in general.
some of the floodplains and flood mapping has changed. We have, increased sea level rise, climate
Mhm.
change, and resiliency aspects. So structures were identified to a prescribed base level, as described in the technical report surrounding the project, and then anything above that or lower than that elevation needs to be raised up to that elevation to just reduce risk and
Gotcha.
account for ever changing climates and sea level rise.
Well, maybe I'll bug you with a couple just more questions on that project. But what has there been some challenges that you have faced that have been kind of a pain point for you?
Absolutely. So this is the first project, the first CSRM project in the country. Other communities are currently going through the study phase. So there are pros and cons of being first, right? One
Ooh,
of the things is it's a lot of attention. You kind of get to be the leader, but with that, you also get to be the guinea pig. So learning on how to deal with a lot of the challenges. The federal government, the local government working together. We try to have a one team mentality, but each one does have different systems and protocols, which can get bogged down at times. I think the biggest challenge on this, so as part of this project, the local government is 100% responsible for all utility relocation as well as environmental remediation of the
mm,
parcels along the alignment of the flood wall. So the utility identification relocation has been a challenge. Most of the areas are pretty old, dating back to at least 1800s, and identifying utilities that cross the flood wall alignment. You have public utilities in the form of drinking water, sanitary sewer, wastewater, and you have the private utilities, electrical overhead lines, fiber optic in the ground, just other unknowns. So really identifying those and really doing our homework before we actually have a contractor out there breaking ground to prevent change orders and cost overruns and things like that. A lot needs to go into
thanks.
that before anyone ever sees a shovel or an excavator out there, right?
Hopefully, you have a good utility coordinator
We
helping,
do, yes,
helping with that.
a couple.
Oh man, what have you? So that sounds like a huge undertaking. What have you, I guess, enjoyed about this project? I mean, it sounds like there's. I mean, as a first for the country, that's pretty notable. I imagine you're doing presentations or public speaking and things of that nature on this thing, or, but I guess that's a separate question. But what have you enjoyed about doing, working on this project?
Absolutely. We do a lot of public presentations, outreach, explaining it in terms that the general public and citizens can understand and relate to, managing expectations about timeline and continuous funding and things like that is very important. Also sharing it, we work at a regional level and share this, like I said, some other neighboring cities. and localities are entering similar studies for this type of project. So that's been fun, always like getting out and sharing the information. One of the things I also like about it is the opportunity to be involved in something on such a large scale. Like we say, it's the first in the kind of the country, and the government has a desire to really do this project right and nail down a lot of our lessons learned and be able to package this up and take it to other coastal areas such as Charleston, South Carolina, Miami, etc.
Mm.
Also, professionally, I've had the opportunity to dive in further on geotech and structural, just from building the flood wall or looking at some of the challenges with elevating these homes. And so, in that area, it's really stretched my rubber band as a civil engineer, project manager, kind of thinking about those because with more of the water resources background has been my specialty, but really have learned a lot in the structural and geotech realm just in my time on this and continue to do so every day. And then ultimately, civil engineering, it's a people profession. So getting out there, sharing the information with the public, like you mentioned, and the opportunity to serve and protect others, their lives, property, and the environment is all great stuff. So happy to be part of it, small contributor to it.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like you're doing great things with that, and I'm sure you'll be recognized for it. So, congratulations on that big thing.
Thanks,
Um,
Isaac.
let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about your experience with the PE exam because that was a huge part of your journey in becoming, obviously, a professional engineer. Matt, you were a student of the Ultimate Civil P Review course, which is a course we make here at Civil Engineering Academy. Could you run me through maybe a little bit about your journey, where you were before? I guess what was your plans to study before, or maybe even how you found us and how the course helped you?
Sure. So I think anyone in civil engineering has heard about the PE exams and the quote horror stories about preparation, taking the exam, things like that. As we all know, one of the wrenches in my studying and preparation was in January 2022. The exam went computer based and limited you, the test taker, to just the PE reference handbook. So that was a new system for all of us to navigate, and a lot of the prep materials weren't updated to reflect that at the time and things like that. I found the process overall to be very difficult. The preparation I think was difficult, definitely taxed personal time and had to make a lot of sacrifice in that. I started studying in January 2022 and planned to take the exam in June of 2022. I was very religious with the studying, dedicating 2 to 3 hours a day, a little more time on the weekends, and took it in June 2022 as planned. Admittedly, during that time, I used another test prep company that wasn't Civil Engineering Academy, and took it in June 2022 and failed. Straight up, there's no two ways about it. I was pretty disappointed, and one, failed the exam, but two, just have to go through all that prep again, and it takes a lot of time, like we said.
Well,
But
it's a big challenge when you failed an exam to have to do it again. A lot of engineers get stuck there. They get stuck with that, or if they fell it multiple times, they can get stuck there. But anyway,
right,
I applaud you for sticking to it. So good job.
thank you.
So okay, so you took a different course. You failed it that first time, and then keep going. What happened?
Okay, so from there, I found out on a Wednesday. I think that seems to be kind of the norm nowadays. People kind of finding out on a Wednesday around 10 a.m. I'm on the East Coast, so I'm not sure how it reflects on other places. But anyway, so found out on Wednesday, and by 2 p.m. that afternoon, I was back enrolled, taking it September 2022. And, stayed with the same discipline too. I think that's important. We hear a lot of people talk, oh, should I switch discipline? Should I not? Et cetera, et cetera. And stayed with the water resources discipline. I figured, we already had momentum built up. You knew something from the previous time spent. So let's just keep moving forward with that and in that direction. That same afternoon, I also enrolled in the Civil Engineering Academy. I had seen the Civil Engineering Academy content, listened to your podcast pretty extensively throughout the preparation. When I say the content, I mean the free sample practice problems on YouTube, which are great. And I really like the approach. I really like the friendly approach of the Civil Engineering Academy. and like I said, signed up for that. Kept studying throughout the summer and passed the exam successfully in September of 2022 on the second attempt. So very grateful and very relieved for that. A journey that took most of the year just in test prep, but it was worth it.
It's a good feeling to have that done and off your shoulders. So awesome. Well, I'm glad you found us. Um, that's exciting that you were able to, and we were able to help you get through that. What would you share with the audience about if they are having to repeat it? Is there any advice you would give to somebody that's struggling to get through this exam?
Sure. And I guess I would start off with saying to sign back up and retake it. I think, like you said, a lot of people can get stuck on, I failed the exam, especially maybe multiple failures. I've heard of people having to take it 4, 5, 6 times even. So I would say sign back up, keep the forward momentum going. The longer you are away from it, you lose information you previously had. It becomes kind of more of a monster in your mind. You kind of have it hanging over you. That can be difficult. I guess as a civil engineering academy content creator, I'd be remiss in not mentioning that we created a blog post on this topic. So I'd invite you to check it out at civilengineeringacademy.com and several great blog articles over there. We talked about what to do if you fail the exam and kind of talks about the same thing. Identifying your study habits, like where you think you went wrong, on the exam, things that challenge you. I would challenge any test taker 24 hours after the exam, try to get a piece of paper and just do a brain dump of like, hey, I struggle with this, because that's information that you're going to forget quickly, but it's valuable in case you need to take the exam again. I think that the NECES printout that they give of the diagnostic report if you fail the exam, I didn't find it very helpful myself. I felt it kind of confusing, actually, and definitely not detailed. So I would try to do my own brain dump of where I struggled, what I would focus on if I had to retake the exam. Fingers crossed I don't, but I want to have that information and capture that, and at least learn from the testing experience. I think something can be learned from going in and taking the exam, regardless of pass fail. But you kind of see how it feels. Physically, you're drained after that 8 or 9 hours. How does it look on the computer, and some of those logistical things. But I would definitely, get back in the saddle and keep cranking on it. Another thing too, I would recommend. I think Civil Engineering Academy does a great job with is the variety and number of sample problems. Just keep practicing the sample problems and solving those problems using the same resources that you're going to have on the exam. So that's your, PE reference handbook or the FE reference handbook in case of the FE exam, your NECES approved calculator, and then any exam specs you have, which are going to vary by discipline. Don't use anything else in solving your practice problems. Keep it right like you're going to see it on the test, and know those resources, and learn them as you're learning how to approach and solve these problems.
That's great. So it sounds like you enjoyed the variety of problems. Is there anything else about the course that you thought was nice to have as a resource?
Yes, I really liked the podcast because it could kind of be supplemental to some of the learning. If I was driving around, I was listening to podcasts. That's,
Nice.
I call it the mobile university. Of trying to capture as much information as you can. I think, like I said earlier, I like the friendly approach to Civil Engineering Academy. Something that stuck with me is just like your welcome video, where it's uplifting music, like, "Hi, I'm Isaac. We're here to help you every step of the journey. It's great. It's friendly. We know it's a stressful environment, but we're not making it that way, or not overly emphasizing that." So I like the overall approach to Civil Engineering Academy, and I think a lot of people would agree with me. It was recently, I think, recognized as the top um, PE exam prep course for 2022. And I think another great resource too is the Civil Engineering Academy Exam Simulator, which does a good job of showing or replicating kind of those test day conditions and how everything looks on the screen, how it fits together, how it's going to appear on your screen, what functionality you're going to have, and just the logistics.
Awesome. Yeah, and we just released that for public use. So you can go grab it at civilengineeringacademy.com. Go find it under our exams. We also have one for the FE too that we have. So we're trying to give you an experience before you have the real experience. So, let's get you practice under your belt and put you in a testing scenario. We do have the ability now to let people pause the exam, say in the middle of the first 40 questions, because we do know you have a life and taking maybe an 8-hour exam is a time commitment. So maybe we could break that up into some chunks for you. But I'm glad that helped. A lot of people do. The course comes with some support too through our community, and hopefully we're able to answer questions quickly as you had them as well. So appreciate all the good thoughts there. Um, let's see. One of the other questions I had is, what has been a challenge for you in getting the PE license, even after you've passed the exam? What, like, a lot of people think, okay, I got the exam and it's done, but what's been the challenge for you to actually get those initials?
Sure. So I think navigating the licensing process itself, like if you Google or Reddit or whatever, you know, search you do online, there's a lot of information about passing the PE exam, how to pass it, different people's experience, etc. There's not a lot of experience on I passed the exam to I'm a licensed PE with PE after my name, and there was a lot of hurdles to jump through. None of them are hard, but just the paperwork needed for your state licensing board, the specific papers needed for the references, tracking down transcripts, documenting the experience. I would highly recommend to anybody to start documenting the experience in each position, as well as a supervisor or contact that can verify your experience in that position. Because to try to track it down, um, all together at the end as you're trying to get the PE paperwork submitted is going to be a challenge. So that process, I think, is just tedious. And again, we're doing this among our full time job, the excitement of I just passed the exam, our personal life. So there's, it's not our sole thing just to try to track down paperwork. Something too that threw me off guard is my state specifically had a regulation exam. So after you send in the application, all the paperwork, the references, the transcripts, um, and they reviewed everything, it was a complete application. Oh, and the application fee. They sent you a regulation exam. It was open
Hmm.
book, an 80-page booklet on the regulations, and then a short exam, not as challenging as the PE one, but another item that you had to complete, wait for it to be reviewed in the process and things like that. Also, a lot of people are gonna be asking, "Hey, you still have EIT behind your name? You didn't update your email yet." Well, you can't call yourself a PE until you officially receive your license from the state board. So anyway, that's another challenge. Just make sure you're following your local regulations. And I think from start to finish, I was pretty on top of the process and moving it along. Like I said, I passed the exam in late September, and by mid-November, I would had officially had the PE license issued from the state board. So that can kind of give listeners a general idea of the timeline. So about 2 months or so.
Wow.
So it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and every state is different. So some states that maybe last. I know in Utah, I didn't have to take an additional exam, but places like California, you still have to take a seismic and survey exam, a whole separate deal there. So you really have to pay attention to what your state requires and follow those rules. And yeah, that's great to hear a timeline and kind of the next steps that you got to deal with as you get your PE license. So Matt spilled the beans a little bit, but you are a contributor to Civil Engineering Academy, and Matt contributes to helping with practice problems, video practice problems now. He's awesome at water resources. This is his bread and butter, and has written some amazing articles on our blog site too that will help you maybe fill in the gaps like this topic we're talking about, getting the actual PE after you've passed the PE, and things of that nature. So I appreciate you jumping on and doing that. Um, Matt, you specialize in water resources. Would you recommend anyone else diving into that area?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Coastal engineering is a great excuse to have to live by a beach. So if you're into that, maybe that's a motivating factor. But water resources, I get to get outside a lot. Go to project site visits. Water is a needed commodity in our world. Regardless of where you are on the entire globe. So there'll always be a job, and and always an opportunity to contribute and serve. So I'd highly recommend getting involved. Also within the water resources, there's many different aspects. My background, like we talked about, is stormwater management, dredging, flood mitigation. But there's also the sanitary sewer and water treatment process, as well as drinking water, public utilities type realm on that too. So a variety of opportunities and ways to pivot and kind of get involved with a variety of projects in the water resources
Mm.
umbrella.
Could I this just popped in my head, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit on this. You're in the government working uh in that sector. Do you see a difference between maybe, if you're jumping into water resources or really any other discipline in civil engineering, working for a government sector versus a private sector? And what have you liked about working in the government sector?
Sure. Absolutely. I see a difference. I would say in the government sector, we're more on the project management versus detailed engineering design
Mhm.
side of things. So a lot of, like we talked about, the utility conflicts and some of those things. I'm managing consultants or teams of consultants or contractors in the field to build a new stormwater pipe system or dredge a ditch or
Gotcha.
etc. Managed the dredging project earlier January 2022 that received federal funding. So it's more on the project management side in the government, and then reviewing a lot of engineering drawings, as well as reviewing them for compliance with federal, state, and local standards and specs. On the private side, a lot of good friends and colleagues work on the private side. They have good things to say about that too. Sometimes you hear about the work-life balance in
Mhm.
the public versus private side. The work-life balance and the government side is pretty solid and steady work. Good benefits, typically 40-hour weeks, good benefits, leave, retirement opportunities, and 401ks and things like that. So good benefits on the government side. A lot of great people doing a lot of great things. Getting out in the community and kind of working on projects, and we drive by and see something or know something about it. It's kind of unique and fulfilling as well. So highly
Awesome.
recommend looking into it.
I was just curious your thoughts around that. So, anyway, well, we appreciate your contributions to Civil Engineering Academy. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts with the world. I think it's exciting to be able to pass that on maybe to the next generation or the next person up. So, appreciate you doing that. Are there any other resources you would recommend for engineers, either for maybe it's specifically for their depth section they're preparing for, or something that's helped you in your career, or even just water resources in general? Is there any other resource you could recommend to our audience?
Sure. So one would be Civil Engineering Academy. I think regardless of where you are in your journey, there's a lot of great sources out there for either FE, PE exam, even as just a civil engineering student who's interested in high school, college, etc. Also, a lot of good information just for engineers, continuing their career. Since I started writing the blogs, I've tried to kind of wrap some of that stuff in there too, kind of on the professional development side for more established career engineers in their career. That so that would be a good resource. ASCE, American Society of Civil Engineers, is always very good resource to get involved with. Infrastructure report card on the water resources side as well. Um, there's also Water Environmental Federation, WEF. I've gone to some conferences with them here locally, and then also YouTube. If you're interested in it, that's how I found out about Civil Engineering Academy, and got my start. So YouTube, there's a ton of great resources on there. I really like the Practical Engineering channel. I know Brady was on with you
Yep.
previously, Isaac, which is how I learned about him. But just YouTube search water resources, dredging, stormwater, water treatment, drinking water, things like that, and see what pops up. A lot of people contributing out there, and good info, and kind of get some more information from the comfort of your living room.
Perfect. Love it. Well, just a teaser. Matt's working on a sweet course for Civil Engineering Academy for the environmental engineering PE. So that's specific. That is not the water resources exam. This is specific to the environmental PE exam. So it's going to be good stuff. So a little teaser for people listening. So we're excited about that. Well, Matt, thanks for jumping on to the show. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts and your wisdom with us. And maybe we'll catch you on another episode.
Absolutely. Thanks, Isaac. Look forward to coming back and talking with you again soon. And in the meantime, I'll continue working on that environmental PE course. I know we have a lot of interest in that. We're excited to get that initiative moving forward. So thank you again.
Thank you. See you next time. Bye.
Alrighty. Bye.